Open up to your videos section. We're going to review for Comp Practice Q3, number 2. The first problem that we have is we're going to be adding fractions. So we're going to add 2 1/4 plus 3 2/5. First thing that we need to do is make sure that we have a common denominator. The smallest number that 5 and 4 go into is 20. Now I'm going to multiply 5 times 4 to get to 20. Brother-sister rule says whatever I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. I'm going to multiply 4 by 5 to get to 20. Brother-sister rule says whatever I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator, so that's going to give me 5. Now my denominator stays the same. I'm going to add my two numerators, which is going to give me 13. And then I'm going to add my two whole numbers, which is going to give me 5. So I have 5 and 13/20. Next, I'm going to multiply. When you multiply decimals, you line up the digits, not the decimals. So when I'm multiplying, I line up the digits, not the decimals. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 1 is 22. Put my 0 in for place value. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. I'm going to now add 4, 6, 8. And now I'm going to go count. 1, 2, 3, 4 digits behind the decimals. 1, 2, 3, 4, so you'll notice I'm going to need to insert a 0 to keep that same number. So decimal 0.864 is my answer. Now I'm going to subtract. Now a quick review over here is if I'm doing 2 2/3 plus 1 1/3, when I add the 2/3 and the 1/3, I get 3/3, and when I add the 2 and the 1, I get 3. But my answer is actually 4 because I know that 3 over 3 is equal to 1, and I add that to the 3 and I get the 4. Well, we're going to use that same idea when we're subtracting. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the 7 minus 3 2/7. So right away we know that we need the denominator to be 7 so that we have a common denominator. And we also know that this fraction has to be 1 whole, so we know the numerator is 7. We also know from our first example that this whole number is going to be 1 smaller than the number that it's simplified to. So if it's simplified to 4, if I'm changing it back into the fraction, this is going to be 3 3/3. So here I'm going to cross out the 7 and make it 6, because if I add 7/7, that's 1, and 1 plus 6 is 7. Now I'm ready to subtract. So my denominator is a 7, and I'm going to go ahead and subtract 7 minus 2 gives me 5, and I'm going to subtract 6 and 3 give me 3. So 3 5/7. Now I'm going to add decimals. When I add decimals, adding, you line up the decimals, and that's so that they keep their value. So 1.26 decimal plus 0.6 decimal, 4.1. You're also going to add in your zeros. Now you're going to add 6 plus 0 and 0 is 6. 6, 2, 1 is 9, and 4 and 1 is 5. Notice that the decimals stay lined up throughout the whole problem. 5.96 is your answer. Now we're going to solve for B subscript 2. So the first question that we're going to ask is the variable B subscript 2 on the left? It's not, so we're going to do symmetrical. So we're going to do 1/2 times B1 plus B2 times H is equal to A. Now, is the B sub 2 alone? It's not, so we have to see what math operation is the 2 doing. The 2 is dividing, so we're going to multiply both sides by 2. This is going to cancel out the 2's, and it's going to leave us with B1 plus B2 times H is equal to 2A. Now what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves, what math operation is the H doing? Because we're solving for the B2. So the H is multiplying. What's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing. So we're going to divide both sides by H. That's going to cancel out the H's, and it's going to leave me with B1 plus B2 is equal to 2A over H. Notice that I didn't have to write the parentheses anymore because I'm no longer multiplying by H. Now I'm looking for B2. Is B2 on the left and first? It's not, so I'm going to do commutative property of addition. And now I'm going to zero pair out my B1. And that's going to give me B2 is equal to 2A divided by H minus B1. Minus B1. Now we're going to solve for H. So is the H on the left? It's not. So we're going to do symmetrical. So 1/2 B1 plus B2 times H is equal to A. What math operation is the 2 doing? The 2 is dividing, so we're going to multiply both sides by 2. This cancels out the 2 and leaves us with B1 plus B2 times H is equal to 2A. Now we're solving for H. So what math operation is the quantity B1 plus B2 doing? It's multiplying. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to multiply by the whole parentheses. Sorry, we're going to divide by the whole parentheses. So when I divide, these two cancel out. They leave me with H is equal to 2A divided by B1 plus B2. And now you have reviewed for your comp practice quiz.